brought to you almost live from the Dude in the Basement Studios. Why? 'Cause that's where the good stuff is. It's Sips, Suds, and Smokes with your smoking hosts, the good old boys. Suds, Suds, Suds. It's time for more Suds.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this Sud segment where every good story starts with a beer and ends with a belch of varying degrees. This is good old gal Julieanna, and joining me today are my co-hosts, good old boy Dave.
Hey everybody.
Good old boy Kendall.
Good afternoon, happy to be here.
Kendall and his wife June do a beer blog, and we'll find out more about that later in the show. And our fearless leader is here again, good old boy Mike.
You did say belch, right?
Well, today's show is actually based on feedback that we've received from some listeners. And no, we're not kicking Dave off the show, much to my chagrin. And the favorable voting is in, Dave. You can still join us here. So we're going to get to discuss beers with little or no hops today. Is kind of the topic we're going to cover.
Whoa. Okay, so first they wanted to get all the gluten out of beer, and now they want to get beer without hops. What's next? Beer without alcohol?
Actually, Dave, they do brew beer without alcohol.
You shut your mouth when you're talking to me.
So, beer without yeast. Okay, and I suppose they also have beer without water?
Mm-hmm, of course, yeah. There's a company that makes powdered beer.
Sacrilege. That's weird.
Well, that's 4 for 4, ain't it, folks? Barley, hops, yeast, and water. They finally managed to make beer suck, and they didn't even have to name it America. Great job, everyone. Well, I guess we're done here. Turn off the mics and play the theme music. We're done.
Okay, Dave, let me walk you back from the ledge here. Yes, there's gluten-free beer is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, seriously. And yes, there's non-alcoholic beer, which is beyond pointless. And powdered beer, well, that is just flat out stupid. But beer without hops has actually a historical significance. Kendall, please help us elaborate through this particular topic for today.
Okay, here are a couple of experts from an article by David Martirana titled The Short and Bitter History of Hops from the April-May issue of the Philly Beer Scene. When you think of beer, you typically think of 4 ingredients defined in the German purity laws of 1516, the Reinheitsgebot.
Jawohl!
Those 4 are water, barley, yeast, and hops. But hops are a relatively new addition to the beer production. Beer is older than the very idea of civilization. Approximately 9,000 years ago, the age of the oldest known evidence of beer, most humans lived as hunter-gatherers and were nomadic. So beer is old. Really old. Hops in beer? Well, not so much. It wasn't until 736 AD that there was any mention of human cultivation of hops, instead of just growing it in the wild. And the first recorded history of hops in brewing doesn't show up until 822 AD. All told, the history of beer produced without hops is approximately 8,000 years older than the history of beer produced with hops.
Sounds old.
It's very old.
I think it's old.
I think it's old.
So for 8,000 years or so before the marriage of beer and hops, beer was flavored and preserved with a mix of spices and fruits, commonly referred to as gruit or grut. Despite the use of hops in beer as early as 822 AD in France and 300 years later in Germany, common hop usage was eschewed for centuries for more traditional gruit-based recipes. Much of this probably had to do with tradition. After all, change is hard. But hop usage was also harshly regulated in certain places. It wasn't until the later part of the 13th century that hops actually started threatening gruit as the main preservative agent in beer in Germany. For England, it took longer. Despite current definitions of beer and ale, in the 15th and 16th century England, ale was defined as a malted cereal drink often flavored with gruit, while beer was a cereal brew that could use other ingredients, including hops. The difference between ale and beer pervaded through the middle 19th century, and it wasn't until then that hops had slowly but definitively taken over Gueuze as the main preserving and bittering agent in beer throughout the world. That is good news. After that, it was anybody's game. So it's only been in the last 200 years or so that hops have become synonymous with beer, and the term ale was repurposed to describe a variety of beer, usually with hops. In the minuscule 2.5% of history of beer those 200 years represent, hop production has gone from simple farming to intense chemical scientific research and breeding programs sponsored by the highest levels of the U.S. and other world governments.
That sounds sinister.
It wasn't an easy road, but hops made room for themselves in our beer and our hearts, both by being such an awesome preservative and helping make our beer taste really, really good.
So, in the middle of that, I lost track. Are we blaming the British or thanking the British?
I think both.
Yeah.
I think it's time for a good fake British accent either way.
No, it's not.
Kendall, I thought of all the big words in there that you faked, they were all done really well.
I tried.
So, look, see, Dave, there was beer before there were hops. And while we all love hops, some people actually are less fond of them than others.
Yeah, I know. We've talked about hop bombs before, and they wreck your palate and everything. You remember that time we drank 27 IPAs in one day?
I do.
Oh,
yes.
dude, I
It was a
remember
good
that.
day.
Yeah, I couldn't drink any or taste anything for 2 days afterwards.
Well, I hope you've learned something here, Dave.
I have. I've learned that. Wait, when did this turn into an after-school special?
Yeah, reading all that history made me thirsty. I didn't come here to educate people. I come here to drink beer and make fun of Dave.
Don't worry, Kendall. We're absolutely going to drink beer, and we're definitely going to make fun of Dave. Julieanna, why don't you read us off the list of beers that we're actually going to consume today?
Well, we don't have a lot of beer with no hops at all, but we do have beer where the hop bitterness and flavor was muted on purpose. So we'll talk about that, and we'll discuss each beer. Here are the beers we'll be tasting today.
Use the word Dave and muted in like the same 5 minutes.
Should be Dave, can't be.
That was an oversight on my part. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yes, the
Yeah.
beers for today are...
Didn't have time to edit this. Okay, so we're going to have Fraoch, Heather Ale.
Fraoch!
Yes. We're going to have Wicked Weed, Terra Locale Series Horti-Glory.
Yay.
The Professor Fritz Briem Berliner Weisse.
I'm Blood Redder, yes.
See. Fullsteam Brewery's Summer Basil Farmhouse Ale. The Oude Gueuze Tilquin from Gueuze Tilquin.
No one outside Belgium can make very good beer.
Nola 7th Street Lemon Basil Wheat. And Belhaven Scottish Ale.
All right, laddie. It's about time we got to the Scotch.
What's that, Kendall? If it's not Scottish, it's crap.
Yeah. So I married an axe murderer. Old classic.
Well, Dave, show us how well you can do two things at once. Or at least try.
That's not the funny part.
Yeah.
Dave, please don't hold my hand while you're doing the other thing.
Let's see if you can read the Suds ratings and make the belching sounds at the same time. I dare you.
I can make all kinds of body noises whenever I want.
True.
The hard part is not making them. Anyway, we'll be tasting and discussing these beers and rating them with these Suds ratings plus our signature belching sounds. Here are those ratings now. Number 1, that sucks. Give me anything but a bud. Number 2, was that a belch? Number 3, what a relief. Number 4, a body should really not make that sound. And number 5, listen to that hang time, give me another. Boom, in your face.
Well, I can vouch that Dave was actually using both hands and reading at the same time, so that qualifies for more than two things, at the same time. Very impressive.
Yay.
Well done.
Yay me.
We'll let
Yeah.
you step up to the big boy's chair next week.
Aw, and he's grinning from ear to ear.
He's thinking, what can I do
me.
to get back at Mike?
I don't have the sound effect of someone flipping you off.
Well,
I'll get it, though.
Yeah.
we'll just imagine that. Beer. Can we get to the beer?
Yeah, let's get to the beer. Okay, so first one that we're going to talk about is from William Brothers in Scotland, and it is Fraoch Heather Ale.
America's most popular beers is like probably America's most popular music. Not great.
Wow. Okay, it's a Heather Ale. It is 5% ABV with a whopping 12 IBUs. Wow.
12.
12, yeah.
12,
yeah.
classy.
And it's a combination of water, malted barley, malted wheat, heather, bog myrtle, ginger, yeast, and a little bit of hops. And we will start discussing this beer after a brief interlude.
I used to date a girl named Bog Myrtle.
What is Heather, anyway? That's what I want to know when you come back from this break.
I want to ask Kendall what Heather tastes like.
I've never tasted Heather before.
Banned once again. Absolutely. That's
Banned
exactly-
once
I
again.
knew that was going to happen.
Rolling clouds and crashing surf, iridescent dunes reflecting by the light of a rising, glowing moon. Seashore mesmerizing, night breeze hypnotizing. We've come across these back roads none too soon. Look to the left, to the right. Keep your eyes on the road, my darling. Wondering if we're only passing through. Open roads and open windows. My hand is yours forever, sweet love.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. Today we are talking about beer with no or little hops, and Dave is cringing.
I thought you were saying beer with no or little Dave.
That's another episode.
That would be awful.
Possibly be our favorite episode.
Ooh.
It tastes like it's trying to be a craft beer.
Well, okay, so the first up is what we started discussing was Fraoch Heather Ales.
Fraoch.
Yes, exactly. So
You're
let's
saying Fraoch or Heather?
Fraoch Heather Ale.
Fraoch tastes
All
like
right,
Heather.
okay.
So, Kendall, what did you think of this beer?
It's interesting because I'm really not sure what Heather should taste like. I mean, this is a style that goes back in Scotland for 2,000 years.
It should taste
Yeah.
like Scottish weed.
Yeah, I've never tasted Heather. To
Not
me,
what I heard.
it's a little floral, earthy, herbal. The malt presence is really there. I mean, you know you're drinking a malty beer. But it's also light. It's got some of the flavors you expect out of other Scottish beers. But this one I think is a little more pleasurable, and it's not a bad drinking beer. I'd give it a 3.
So are you saying that if this is what Heather tastes like, you approve?
I think so. I'm more curious about the bog myrtle.
Good old boy Mike.
Yeah, first step getting out of the hole is stop digging. All right, so, I really love this. It's very delicate flavors. I thought all over this. It's about time to have a good Scottish accent to come around here. That's what we need to talk about the Fraoch. So
when are you going to start one?
anytime right about now, we're going to be having a very good Scotch discussion for talking about Heather. So I don't know what heather is. It's apparently a weed, so I don't know why we don't call it the weed beer. But anyway, it's very good. It's has a bit of subtle sweetness to it. And I bet the lads over there across the pond don't know anything very good about this. They has to put the hops and everything. This is just very good weed. So
That means something else in Scotland.
that's right. Me and the lads, we'd fire up
again.
Yes, we'd fire up the bagpipes. We'd give this a solid 4.
Nice.
Good old boy Dave.
How do you follow that?
I don't know.
Please do not rate my fake Scottish accent.
We don't have a number that low.
Yeah, I agree.
So I really like this. You know, Scottish beers in general are known for not having a lot of hop character to them, primarily because hops don't generally grow in Scotland. So Fraoch is actually a really good indicator of what a lot of probably very early Scottish ales would have tasted like. And I think the herbal characteristics of the heather and the bog myrtle,
Same difference.
yeah, whatever, you know, myrtle and heather, two chicks make some beer. They're good though. They got some good flavors, and I will give Fraoch a 4.
This is a better review without a fake Scottish accent.
Maybe.
I agree.
Maybe.
That was fake.
Well, okay. So I really love this beer. As those that know me really well know that, like, I always have to have some of this on hand in my house all the time because I love it. And I like what Mike said about the delicateness of this beer. Little floral, lots of malt, and I get this little like honeyness too that kind of lingers over the tongue afterwards as well. And I just think for this being a very low hoppy beer, it's just full of flavor. And for somebody that's a little scared of what hops are, I mean, this is a good intro if you could find it. And one of my like personal favorites of the flight, I'm giving this a 4.
So if you had to pick another herb that's very close to heather, I would probably use lavender as maybe a close cousin to the heather. Is that yes?
Yeah, lavender is more aromatic than heather is, though, so that's
This
the
is a
only...
lot more subtle,
Yeah, this is more subtle, but what's interesting from what I've read is that lavender, if you dry it, it really doesn't have that astringency that you would expect out of hops that you're getting out of the heather, whereas heather dries and gives you this herbally astringency that they used to use in the beers, obviously, because that's what they were using to make this. So does that make any sense?
Yeah, so part of what kind of inspired this episode was also a lot of people thinking that all hops are bitter. And I noticing a lot of people coming up to the bar and saying, I want something with no hops, and thinking that, and then a bit more inquiry, I'm like, well, what is it that you're not wanting? I don't want anything that's bitter. Well, that's not necessarily something that doesn't have hops in it.
Right.
So I think part of what, as we're going through these, is really talking about, the level of bitterness. This Fraoch is not bitter.
Right.
The herbal quality in this presents a floral quality, but it's not born out of traditional hops. So maybe as we kind of go along through this, maybe talking about the bitterness, And,
yeah, I know I have had some Gruits, and they can be bitter because if you use yarrow or some different herbs, if you use like a ton of rosemary or different things, they can add a lot more bitterness and astringency to it. So just going for something without hops is not necessarily going to get you something that's not bitter, and it's really more about late addition hops versus boil hops and things. So.
And the discussion around bitterness too, understanding that if you didn't put anything in the beer to bitter it up a bit, you're going to have something so cloyingly sweet, you're not going to be able to drink it. It's just going to be sugar water.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Next Dave. I'm sorry, next beer.
Yes. Next beer. We're going to talk about Wicked Weed Horti-Glory Farmhouse Ale with flowers. Yes. This is part of their Terra Locale series. And this
That's a big word for people in North Carolina.
I know, isn't it? So
Break it into two small words.
So it's brewed with elderflowers, sumac, and honeysuckle.
Isn't sumac poison?
No.
Poison sumac? That's a thing.
It is a thing, but sumac itself is not, poison.
No.
It's a tree.
Okay.
It's like a tree root.
If it fell on you, would it kill you?
And
If nobody was around, would you hear it falling on you?
Thank you, Kendall.
If it fell on you and no one heard you scream, would it make a difference?
Oh, boy.
The beer.
So,
Yeah.
either way, it'll kill you. So, poison or falling on you.
And
That was my point.
Oh, fine.
There was a point for Dave.
I guess. Maybe.
Not really.
Sure. And this is a comfortable 6.9% ABV, by the way.
I'm feeling comfortable.
Yes. Okay.
I'm comfortable with this ABV.
Good old boy Kendall. What'd you think of this beer?
I really enjoyed it. It's got a really nice tartness. It is floral. I really picked up on the floral. I'm getting almost like a lemony citrus. I'm not sure where that's coming from. Maybe it's some of the characteristic of some of the hops or even the yeast they used in it. I'd be curious just what kind of hops they put in and when they did, because you don't get any of those, but yet I'm still getting some citrus notes out of it. So also picked up on the honey. That honeysuckle, that's interesting. I wish more breweries would throw some honeysuckle in a beer.
It's a very interesting flavor.
But I loved it, and I'll give it a 4.
Good old boy Mike.
I wrote down earthy, malty, floral, citrus, and kind of tart. I really just thought this was a really great combination. I love everything that Walt and Company are doing at Wicked Weed, and this is another really great series. I think it's going to do well for them to kind of go after some non-traditional ingredients like this.
Yeah,
I think there's a good hole in the market, for some things like this. My Suds rating is 4 for Horti-Glory.
Good old boy Dave, what'd you think?
Sorry.
Really?
Jumped a little too quick on my rating.
Was that a belch?
It's a pretty good one. So, Kendall and Mike, I think, copied my notes and said all the stuff I was going to say, but
We can skip Dave.
That is harsh. You said at the beginning of the show you were not removing me, so you need to go by that.
No, I just said that people were not voting for you to be removed. There's a difference.
Slight distinction. That's what happens when you deal with an attorney.
There you go.
Anyway, so I really like the tartness, and it's not overpowering. And this is one of those beers where the flavor profile kind of takes you on a little journey with each sip. You go from the tart, the citrus, and then a sweet kind of finish. And I really, really enjoy this beer. Wicked Weed is just incredible with what they do. So I will give this beer a 4.
And again, hi. I'm going to wax poetic on this just like the rest of you. I mean, really nice, really floral, light citrus, very easy drinking. Granted, it's like the beer nerds kind of lawnmower beer, but, definitely something to have in the summer. And it's quite beautiful. And I'm giving this a 4 as well.
I'm going to put this on the wedding beer list. That's what I would do.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Right behind Mélange à Trois. This is a beer that would do well at weddings, would it not?
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes. Especially for non-beer drinkers.
Yeah, the wine crowd would
absolutely,
definitely dig it.
Oh, sure. Cool. Yeah. And then that crispness, it would almost mimic like a champagne-y kind of thing. Yeah, totally. Okay, the next beer that we are going to talk about is...
very good in Belgium. Can we get to the Belgian beer?
Yeah, if you give me a second here, we will get to this Belgian beer. It is Professor Fritz Briem or Briem.
That's Belgian?
1809 Berliner Weiss.
Absolutely.
Oh, wait.
No, keep going. We'll do the Berliner.
They both start with B. You know,
Yeah.
Belgium, Bavaria.
Do the
Okay,
Briem
fine.
Berliner. Sure, no problem.
Okay, sorry. Yes.
Different country has a different German.
Same accent.
Jawohl, it's different. It's over the river. That's why.
Same terrible accent from Mike.
That's correct. I am Dr. Briem. I make the Berliner.
Okay.
Please talk about it now.
Here's your prescription.
Wow. Okay, so a little bit behind this beer. Yeah, okay. So in 1809, Napoleon and his troops identified Berliner Weiss as the champagne of the North. He requested the beer be served with syrup to cut its extreme level of acidity.
Wow.
Now, this 1809 is a very traditional interpretation of the Berliner style Weisse, which has an intense blend of lactic tartness and complex fruitiness. It is bottle conditioned, and it will age beautifully in a dark, cool place.
Just like me.
Dave, don't get any ideas. Anyways, yay to that. Good old boy Kendall, what'd you think of this beer?
What a great representation. Classic Berliner. And I love this because it really shows how we as Americans like everything bigger and badder.
Screwed it up.
And we take things to 11. Most of Berliners you get here in America are so tart that you really...
America's most popular beers is like probably America's most popular music. Not great.
So most people think of Berliner Weisse as this super tart beer, and if you drink this 1809 Berliner, you're going to realize it's not tart. I think it's funny that Napoleon and his troops thought it was tart because back in the day, compared to most of the beers they were drinking that were really malty, this would have been a super acidic beer.
Because they didn't have any West Coast IPAs.
Right.
So they would not have understood what bitterness is.
And they were missing out.
So this is a beer that is really, I think it's really enjoyable, and I can see how some of the traditional syrups, especially like a raspberry or the Woodruff syrups, would be nice in this. But even on its own, such a great beer. If somebody says, I'm not a beer drinker, I don't like bitter, this is a beer to give them. There's no bitterness, and the acidity, the tartness is light and gentle, and I think they'll enjoy it. And this is a great Berliner. It's 4 for me.
Nice.
Yeah. Good old boy Mike, what'd you think?
You know, I would echo a lot of Kendall's sentiment. I love the conversation that Kendall and I had when we were tasting this before the show. Was we'd had another Berliner Weiss today that was actually a U.S. Domestic craft version, and what striking contrast this was. And I have not had this for a long time. The Bear Berliner that we're having here today, and it just reminds me how good and clean a beer can be without the absence of a lot of things. And you guys are nodding your head, and it just really reminded me how something so simple can be so good.
Like me.
No.
Good try, Dave. So I thought it was malty, citrus, refreshing. God, those are not the words I would use with Dave. my Suds rating for the Briem Berliner is 4.
Hey Dave, what'd you think?
So, if all of the Berliner Weisses you've had previously to this were brewed in America in the last 5 years, this will not be what you expect.
No.
And that's fine. And it's weird because it's like Mike was saying, you know, we had one earlier that was
decidedly different.
Yeah, incredibly different. But it was a more modern American take, and like Kendall said, Americans go overboard with everything sometimes. And so it's kind of hard to wrap your head around this. Like if this was the first Berliner Weiss you'd ever had, and this was your standard for what the style was, then the American beers would just kind of crush you in a way. But stepping back into this from American Berliner Weisses, you get a really good impression of how things change over time and how things escalate and grow and become, outrageous. But this is a very good beer. I get almost zero acidity in it at all. It's very sweet.
True.
But it's very crushable, very drinkable beer, and I do enjoy it. And I will give Dr. Fritz a 4.
My big question is why aren't we drinking more of this?
You didn't buy more of it.
No, I mean, this is everything that to me is about summer. Or not even that, but everything that's about a great, easy drinking beer without fuss or mutts. And I'm surprised, I'm kind of like kicking myself like, darn, I need to be buying more of this. Or at least
sell this in like 2-liter, bottles.
Oh,
yeah,
right?
No, exactly.
5-gallon jug.
There you go.
But this is the perfect example of less is more.
Exactly,
and
yep.
Just extremely enjoyable and quaffable, if I may quote Reverend Mark. And I give this guy a 4 as well.
4s all around for Dr. Fritz.
I think we should pull this beer out every time we have a Berliner on the show.
Yeah.
Compare it.
This is a really good reference beer. I mean, I don't know what the reference standard is, but I got to believe that this is right up there.
I think that's it.
Yeah, this might be the quintessential traditional Berliner Weiss.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's 2 different styles.
Yeah.
But baby, the
Well, we will
whole
be right back
elation
after a little brief
running
interlude.
down this lover's avenue. As slow as a willow blows, or as fast as the world wind grows, we glide beneath the stars in cobalt blue. Look to the left, to the right, keep your eyes on the road, my darling, wondering if we're only passing through. Open roads and open windows, my hand is yours forever, sweet love. Our eyes ahead on these back roads with a view.
Hey, welcome back. We are talking today about beers with little or no hops. And the next beer that we're going to discuss is from, it's called Gueuze Tilquin. What?
Gueuze.
Gueuze.
Gotta put the hands up.
Oh, yeah.
Gueuze.
Gueuze.
Yes. Now, this guy is a product of Belgium, so Belgian.
We're getting to Belgium.
Thank you. Yes. And at 6.4%, this guy is a beer obtained from blending 1 and 2 and 3-year-old lambics.
Ooh, so sick.
That is awesome.
Yes.
6.4 is kind of on the high side for that, too. That's interesting.
Yeah, that is. You're right.
So, go to
Most
love
lambics are all 4, 5, or 5.
Yeah. So, go to Boy Kendall. What'd you think of this?
Oh, I love this beer. I love this style. Every producer of this style is amazing, but this is one you're going to be able to find in almost any store. The Gueuze Tilquin is widely available. And one of the words that popped right into my head was cheesy. Mm-hmm. Because if you think of a very funky cheese, these beers use hops in a very interesting way. Whereas most brewers want hops that are super fresh, they use hops that have been aged for 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
And those aged hops will, if we get a little scientific here, the isovaleric acid gives it a cheesy flavor.
Big word of the day.
Which is very similar to some of the flavors you're going to get in some of the funky cheeses of Europe. And this beer pairs so well with some nice funky cheese.
Oh, yeah.
And wow. To me, this is the best beer of the flight. I love this beer. It's a 5.
Good old boy Mike, what'd you think?
Well, I really like the fact that we had not just a lambic in the lineup today, but we actually decided to put a Gueuze, in the lineup. So lambics do not have any hops in them either, and so you have to understand this is really just a blended, aged, lambic is what you're going to have in a Gueuze. The Tilquin Gueuzes, there's several of these that they have. There's this one, and there's some that have some flavors in them, like apricot, I think. It's another Tilquin. And I definitely have always enjoyed this series. It's very good. It's easily, something that's in the top 5, for Gueuzes. My tasting notes for this one here today, it's a 3-way turkey shoot of citrus on my palate. It's just sour madness, and I could bathe in this, but I'll prefer to drink it. My Suds rating is a 4.
Wow.
Good old boy Dave.
Turkey shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I couldn't use one of those big words like Kendall.
I can't even.
Isolated compounds.
Yeah.
I'm drinking beer.
Yeah, so this is a great Gueuze because the blending is what really kind of tells you how good a brewery or a lambic producer is, because as the lambics age, they actually grow more sour and more acidic as the bacteria and everything has time to work. And by adding the oh my God, Kendall's down.
A little too much Gueuze.
We've got to pipe her down.
Some Gueuze out the left nostril.
Ooh. It's better in your throat and not in your nose. But the younger stuff is a little sweeter and hasn't had time to actually reach its full potential. So you can really tell the quality of a lambic producer by how well they blend. And this is blended so well and so even-handed, so that you get to enjoy the bitterness and acidity, but it doesn't overpower you.
Year after year, too, and that's what I really love is the,
consistency.
That's, I think, what's very difficult for Gueuze makers and people that are making blended products in general. You can pull off the blend of a lifetime, but the ability of doing that and replicating
more
it
than once.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen this actually up close and very personal with a good friend that's actually, doing a lot of blending beers, commercially. And, we've had moments where it's like, yeah, you got that one on. Not so much on this one, And so it definitely is an art form
Absolutely.
to it. And that's what I respect about the Tilquin products is the ability of having them. I've probably had this for at least 5 or 6 years. And it's just knockout every
It's always
single
good,
time.
yeah.
Always.
And brewing and blending are two very different skill sets.
Very different.
But I think this is phenomenal. And if you're looking to try this style, like Kendall said, it's very available and it's great. And I would absolutely give it a 5.
I'm going to totally agree with Dave on this one. I mean,
that's rare.
We're recording it too.
Yes, we're recording it. No, I mean, this is just, it's a beautiful, beautiful beer. And again, the issue of less is more. I mean, the amount of flavor that's packed into this puppy, and there's not a lot of, it's not adjunct full of, herbs and spices and fruits and vegetables and all sorts of weirdness. I mean, this just...
Like KFC?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. No, but it is what it is, and I'm sure it's like one of the standards, too. Again, like we were talking about the one previous to this. Just a beautiful, beautiful beer, and don't be afraid of it. I mean, it's so refreshing, and it's a great palate cleanser as well. I love it. It's a 5. And now we move on to the United States.
Sorry. I can't stop.
Better out than in, Dave.
Can't stop rating.
That's a 3.
For sure. God bless. Okay, so this one is from Fullsteam Brewery in North Carolina. And it is called the Summer Basil Farmhouse Ale, which is their take on a Berliner Weisse, which is kind of interesting. This puppy sits at 5.5% ABV, and yeah, that's about it. Good old boy Kendall, what'd you think?
3 words. When I first smelled or tasted it, basil, basil, basil. I mean, it's a lot of basil. It's a lot up front. It kind of fades. I was getting a little citrusy, lemony flavors kind of in the aftertaste. It dries out in your mouth. It's light. It's crisp. It's very refreshing. It's a great farmhouse beer and would go well, with like a nice roasted chicken.
Ooh, yeah.
And a nice dinner out on your patio on a hot summer's evening. So I really enjoyed it. For people that don't like bitter beers, I think especially if they're foodies, they would really love the basil in this.
Yeah.
So it's a 4.
Good old boy Mike?
For the Fullsteam Summer Basil, light, malty, really great aroma. But, I really think that this falls in the category of a good herbal replacement for bittering. I still found there was some bitterness off this. And, if I had to think of a great... This would go well with a good Italian meal. That where you haven't laced everything else with a bunch of basil already. If you had somebody that was sensitive, to basil... and you didn't actually want to put it in your dish, but you still wanted your guests to enjoy it as a component of the meal itself.
It's a way to do it.
This is a way of shifting some of the herbs around into what they're drinking as opposed to in the food itself. So, really great beer. I love the innovation around this. It's a solid 4 for me. I could smell this beer all day long. Yeah.
Good old boy Dave?
When you look at this beer in the glass, it is just very nearly clear, and it's very light in body, but it's extremely refreshing, and I think you could definitely enjoy this beer. For me, almost maybe as an aperitif or something like right before dinner, just sort of kind of get your salivating a little bit, get your mind ready for some food. I think it's a great little beer, and I would also give it a 4.
This makes me want to have a plate full of mozzarella and tomatoes and basil.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm just in some balsamic vinegar. I'm just drooling over that right now to go with this. It's so light and so crisp, but not like lager crisp, more like champagne-y crisp. Even as it sits here for a while, it's still got a nice little head on it, and just a beautiful, beautiful beer. I mean, I don't know how Berliner Weisse it is, in comparison to what we had earlier.
Berliner Weisse.
Berliner Weisse.
Yeah, I was thinking it's more of a saison.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's what they're saying. But
it's on the internet. It must be true.
Right. Exactly. From the label themselves. However, they keep winning Southern awards with this beer, which I find really interesting. It's a great summer beer. And don't be afraid of the basil and don't be afraid of the smell, because the smell just really enhances the experience. And this is definitely, to me, one of those...
Kind of like Dave.
Is that why you're always kind of standing really close to me?
Yes, it's your manliness smell. Mm-hmm.
The smell enhances the experience. That sounds like a good T-shirt.
But this is one of those, you hear about how if you inhale as you taste, that's going to help. Well, this is a prime example of that. And to me, it just enhances the basil flavor.
That would be a good thing, like a sponsorship thing. The smell enhances the experience.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm giving this a 4. Okay.
Hey, I'd love for us to get to, some of the discussion topics that we had here, because I really love some of the ones that we had here for some balance of time. And I really love this lead-in question. So are Americans, and you say that like an accusatory term, Americans, headed towards hop burnout? Is it hop burnout or flavor burnout?
I think it's bitterness burnout.
Bitterness burnout.
Yeah.
So you're saying the days of that 107 IBU, Lagunitas Maximus, or
I think there's always going to be a crowd for that. But you even see it now in like how, a lot of the different, even like big IPAs are leaning more towards the end of boil or, Whirlpool dry hop, where it's all about the flavor and aroma of the hops, and it's a more balanced approach to the malt versus, a ton of pale malt and a ton of caramel malt, so you get this big sweet mash, and then you've got to throw a crap load of bittering hops in there to even try to balance it out, and you end up with 10,000 IBUs.
Yeah, I think that's true. Good old boy Mike and I had recently at a bottle share had some Julius.
Oh yeah,
Treehouse Julius, and that beer
rocked the house.
It so much flavor and aroma, but not a ton of bitterness.
No.
And even though even the beer we've had recently, that Evil Cousin, same thing. A lot of aroma, a lot of flavor, but you're not getting bitterness. So you're right. Brewers are moving to using hops in new ways to really bring out the flavor characteristics of them without just making a complete bitter bomb.
Well, there's so many new hops too,
right?
And the way the hops are, evolving, the different varietals and things, and they're becoming so much more, flavor forward, and it's not just about how much, acid can I pull out of this thing.
Well, one of the things I love about Dave is he's the king of English beers. And the fact that he's not only he makes really great English beers, but he's able to really appreciate them for what they are. And English beers don't traditionally have a lot of hops, do they, Dave?
No.
Or they're mild, more mild versions of hops.
I think if you think of English beers versus American beers, you should think of in terms of English people versus American people. They're a little more reserved.
Do they taste different?
Yes. I've tasted both, and the taste is quite different.
Bobby, you taste a little different today. I just don't believe that you've really acquired the right taste for one day.
Americans are quite bitter in comparison to English people and beers. Wow. I should probably stop.
But I
maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think the point I was trying to lead Dave in is that there's a whole style of beers with English noble hops that really can lower the level of IBUs for people that have sensitivity towards a lot of bitterness.
And it's all more about balance and moderation.
Mm. Yeah. Well, that's definitely a word that we always look for in a lot of beers is the measure of balance, with everything that's going on.
Yes.
Really great flight. I really learned a lot. I'm really glad we came back and got to taste, some of these in today. Definitely the Berliner Weiss. Well, they'll have to hang that around a lot more.
Yeah.
Just to kind of remind ourselves of saying, hey, this is what it, kind of should be like, at the end of the day.
True. Wow, that was really great stuff, everyone. Sorry we couldn't get to talk about those last two, but maybe we can talk about them on another episode.
We'll talk about the Scotchman another day.
Exactly. Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode, and you can catch all of our episodes online, as well as on SoundCloud, TuneIn, Stitcher, YouTube, PRX, and Spreaker, our native media host. iTunes and our own Android app, yay, Android app, are the easiest ways to enjoy the show on your phone. Just search for Sip Suds Smokes on iTunes or in the Google Play Store.
We love your feedback, and you can reach us online at info@sipsudsandsmokes.com.
Dave, stop reaching for me.
Wow. I can't. Mike.
Our daily tasting notes flow out on Twitter every single day. Our handle on Twitter is @SipSudSmoke, and our Facebook page is always buzzing with lots of news.
Do us a favor and take the time to rate this episode if you're listening to us online. That's a big help to us, and we get to see your feedback as well, even those things you say about Dave.
Do not
Especially.
rate Dave's bodily noises.
Kendall, why don't you tell us about your beer blog and where to find it?
My wife and I blog about beer at beermakes3.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We like to share the good news of good beer.
Well, I'd like to thank my host today, good old boy Dave.
Yeah, thanks.
That's it.
Wow.
Just thanks.
I've been beaten on for the last hour. I think that's about all you're getting, tough guy.
Good old boy Mike.
This is good old boy Mike. Definitely asking all of you, come back, join us once again, and definitely keep on sipping. Please do not sniff, Dave.
It enhances the experience.
Good old boy Kendall.
It's a pleasure, as always, to be here, and always drink good beer.
And I'm good old gal Julieanna. Cheers and keep on chuggling, guys.
This has been a One Tan Hand production of Sips, Suds, and Smokes, a program devoted to the appreciation of some of the finer slices of life. From the Dude in the Basement Studios, your hosts, the Good Old Boys, will see y'all next time.